Hi, it's Natalie from Nat Christmas Autism Girl. Thanks for joining me on my channel. So I am continuing talking about other stuff besides autism today. So today I'm going to be talking about gut-wrenching scenes in movies, TV shows, and books, and also going to be talking about my favorite movie moments, which is a different subject, technically speaking, than gut-wrenching, because movie moments could be these powerful moments in movies that aren't necessarily gut-wrenching. Now, gut-wrenching scenes more involve, oh my gosh, this is so tragic, I feel so torn up inside, kind of thing. So those are the two subjects I'm going to be talking about today, and spoiler warning. So, yeah. And also, I just want to get started now. So, these scenes are going to be in no particular order. I have them written down in my opinions journal like I always do when I do stuff like this. So, yeah, but I'm just going to be talking about each scene that I listed, but they're not ranked because I have no idea which is more gut-wrenching than the others. I mean, that's just so hard to say, you know? So, yeah. But yeah, let's get started. So, first of all, we have Zane's sacrifice to Ninjago. Now, Ninjago is one of my favorite shows. It's this Lego show. And you find out that this character, Zane, is weird. And then you find out he's a robot during season 1, which is shocking to everybody in the audience. And I didn't suspect that he was a robot. But in season 3, he makes the sacrifice where he freezes the ultimate bad guy, the Overlord, also in the form of the Golden Master. And he does this by exploding, by giving up because his power source can only take so much. It reached critical mass and he exploded and died. It's really sad. But anyway, that's one of the gut-wrenching scenes. And then Nia's sacrifice in Ninjago, another scene in Ninjago. Now this scene is gut-wrenching because it's very tragic, because Nia becomes one with the ocean basically. She becomes water and loses her humanity to save her boyfriend Jay. So that's pretty tragic. I mean, it's basically they both die at some point. Now Nia doesn't necessarily die, she becomes one with the sea, but she loses her humanity, so she basically dies, kind of like Zane did. But then Zane rebuilt himself, so it wasn't a permanent death, and neither was Nia's. But they eventually saved Nia by taking her powers. But still, I was still pretty devastated at the moment, so it's on this list. So then, I also have Cole's a ghost. Now, this is a big spoiler, but in season 5, my favorite character in Ninjago, Cole, the Black Ninja, the Ninja of Earth, becomes a ghost. Now, in the show, they go to this haunted, cursed temple where if anyone trapped while the sunrise will be turned into a ghost forever. And so Cole doesn't make it out of the temple by sunrise because they're trying to learn their jitsu, and he drops the scroll on the way out. So I was like, almost like, oh my gosh, she's a ghost. And so it took everybody in a bit of shock. I mean, I actually told my mom not to watch it without me so I could see how she reacted. So it was a pretty tragic and shocking turn of events. So yeah, that's that. And then you have Sabine's past in Star Wars Rebels. Now, in Star Wars Rebels, Sabine is this Mandalorian who's been through a lot, and her family kind of abandoned her. So in this scene in Star Wars Rebels, in one of my favorite episodes of season 3, Trials of the Darksaber. Well, that and Twin Suns. It's really hard to pick a favorite in season 3. Twin Suns or Trials of the Darksaber, I don't really know. Both of them are probably my favorite. I can't pick. But anyway, Twin Suns isn't as gut-wrenching as this episode. But anyway, Sabine's past in Rebels is very tragic. She started out working for the Empire, and she says everything I did was her family. And they believe that they could accuse her of running, and they consider her a traitor. But she says that she left to save everyone, and that she built weapons that they used against Mandalore. and so she tries to stop it, but her family turned against her. So, and then in that moment when they all say they dedicate, when Ezra, the main character, the main protagonist, Kanan and Finn Rao, those are characters in Rebels, they all commit themselves to her saying, I would follow you. And it's a really cool moment because her makeshift family is there with her, no matter what her biological family says about her. Her makeshift family is there with her no matter what. And it's a really powerful scene. And it makes me cry. It made me cry one time. And next, in a book, the next scene is a book scene, actually. It's Ruby's death in one of the Anne of Green Gables books. Now, Ruby is one of Anne's friends from Avonlea and the Anne of Green Gables books. I believe, I can't remember exactly which book it is. Honestly, but this scene tears me apart. Like, I cried when I read this scene. So Ruby is sick with, I forget the illness, but she's really, really sick. And she's acting like she's happy, and Anne's not a big fan of her anymore because she's very, like, shallow. And she wants a string of bows at her arm. But nevertheless, she's really, really sick, and she ends up saying and when Anne visits her at night, she goes, I can't do this anymore. I'm so sick. And she said, but you act happy. And she says, because I feel happy, because it makes me forget that I'm really sick, but I just can't do this anymore. She dies, and man, it tears me apart. Yeah, that's another scene. So then you have Hadassah's death in the Mark of the Lion trilogy, the first book, Voice in the Wind. Now, Hadassah is a Jewish messianic Jew, a Christian, who is taken into slavery by the Romans during the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD, AD 70, I mean. And so she ends up falling in love with her mistress's brother, Marcus. Her mistress' name is Julia. And so Hadassah ends up, and Marcus declares his love for her because he's fallen in love with her too. And she basically says, no, I can't, you're not a Christian, we'd be unevenly yoked. Julia's mad. She declares revenge, has Hadassah sent to the lions, and Hadassah seemingly dies. Now, she's fine in the next book, but sort of. She's scarred and crippled, but she ends up living. But when you think she dies, it tears me apart. So, and it's horrible that Julia did that to her. And then in the second book is absolutely my favorite because Hadassah survives, scarred and crippled, but still survives. And Marcus ends up becoming a Christian, and Julia, right before her death, is actually one of my favorite moments of the book. She ends up becoming a Christian right before she dies, and her brother baptizes her, and he forgives her finally. And it just, it's such a powerful, powerful scene. So yeah, I got off on a tangent about Julia's death too, but I really had also listed in here, not Julia, but I just had to talk about it. So then you have Natasha's death from Avengers Endgame. Now, if you're a Marvel fan, you know what I'm talking about. When she and Hawkeye or Clint Barton / Hawkeye, Natasha Romanoff and Clint Barton are fighting over who should be sacrificed for the Soul Stone, it just tears me apart. Rips me up on the inside because they both just he thinks he deserves it, and she's like, you didn't judge me for what I did wrong, and I'm not going to judge you. And so she says, let me go, and he goes, no, and then she pulls herself off and dies. It's just so tragic. And then Gamora's death in Avengers Infinity War, when Thanos says he's the only thing he loves, she screams as she throws her off the cliff. She tries to kill herself so he won't be able to sacrifice her to save half the universe. But it doesn't matter, he throws her off the cliff anyway, and as she screams, because she knows what's going to happen. Not worried for her own safety, but she's worried about the rest of the universe, and that's what makes it so tragic to me. So the next scene is from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Fitzsimmons underwater. Now Fitz is this guy that's an engineer. His name is Leo Fitz, and then you have Gemma Simmons. And they've been best friends for a long time, but then he's been in love with her, and so they're sent underwater by a traitor. Well, he's really not really a traitor, he's an undercover spy, but anyway, he sends them in a box under the ocean. And so they are stuck down there, and basically there's only one, they find a way out, but then there's only one breath, so he insists on giving it to her. And she says, "No, you're my best friend in the world. Why would you make me do this?" He says, "You're so much more than that." And she starts hugging him and kissing him on the cheek and begging him not to let her make her do it. And he presses the button anyway, and he suffers brain damage. That scene rips me up. It's so tragic, so gut-wrenching. And, yeah. And then Fitz's death, actual death, in season 5 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is pretty darn tragic. So a building collapses and he's trapped under rubble. So they pull him out, but then he's impaled. So he's gonna die, basically. And he doesn't even know it. He thinks his legs are broken. He thinks he'll be fine. He just dies without even knowing that he dies. I cry when I see that scene. So tragic. And then Lincoln's sacrifice in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. when humanity is about to be under a human parasite's control. Daisy has been under it's kind of complicated, but it's this big sacrifice. So then, and then in season 4, Fitz was captured and was brainwashed and under the control. It was kind of brainwashed, but not really. So his life was changed, and he was plugged into this framework. His consciousness was, and he kind of becomes evil, and it's really tragic. And when they're united, he's so ashamed of himself. And then when she hugs him, he can't even look at her. It just really gets to me. So then we have Eponine's death and Gavroche's deaths in Eponine's death in Les Mis. So Eponine is this character. She's the daughter of the Thénardiers, the innkeeper, who abused Cosette as a child. But then when she moves to Paris, she becomes poor and her life is torn apart. She's in love with this guy, Marius, but he's fallen in love with Cosette. And so she ends up sacrificing herself for him. And they share this song together, Little Fall of Rain, and she's dying. And it just gets to me every time. And then Gavroche's death is actually her brother in the books, but it's not really that way in the musical. But anyway, so Gavroche is this little boy who's fighting with the schoolboys, and he ends up being shot, and he doesn't even really get the chance to say goodbye to people, but it breaks me up. And then Turning, it's different from the musical than in the movie. In the movie, they're cleaning up the blood as they sing this song on the street. And then in the things, they have these candles, and it's so, it just makes me sick inside. It's just so tragic. And then Drink With Me is another scene, and that tears me up. So Drink With Me is this song in Les Mis where the schoolboys think, "Oh, we're gonna die. Or will we die? If the world won't even remember us when we fall. Does your death mean nothing at all?" That just breaks me up. I pretty much I almost cry every time I hear that stinking song. So And then, of course, we have Ned and MJ saying goodbye to Ned and MJ in No Way Home. That scene really makes me cry every time I see it. And yeah, that's about right. And then finally, Lost in Space, when Will gets stabbed, and then they play his recording he makes for his family. It's so tragic. But yeah, that's my gut-wrenching scene. So we're gonna cover some movie scenes, some of my favorite movie moments real quick, because I spent most of this video talking about gut-wrenching scenes. So I've only got a few minutes, but I'm going to still talk about movie moments. So Clouds ending. Now Clouds is this movie about a real boy, a real high schooler who's diagnosed with terminal cancer. And as he's dying, his dream, he says at the beginning of the movie, is for everyone to sing a song, and that's exactly what happens as he's dying during the movie. It really, so beautiful. And then, of course, I love the scene in the last movie, Return of the King of the Lord of the Rings, when they bow to the four hobbits. That scene really gets to me. And of course, I love the epilogue in Les Mis when Jean Valjean dies at the end, but because they're weeping. But then they all get to go to heaven. So it's like this hopeful ending, but it's also really tragic. So it's hopeful, but tragic. That's why I love Les Mis. And then you have Body's death. Now, Body is the pilot in Rogue One. And when he dies, it just gets to me. But it's a really cool moment because he goes, "This is for you, Galen." She's talking about the main character's father. And he just watches. He sacrifices himself and watches as the bomb goes off and just looks at it and goes, "Okay, I did it." And Jin and Cassian on the beach in Rogue One as well, when he says, "Your father would have been proud of you, Jin." That really gets to me. Of course, saying goodbye to Woody in Toy Story 4 makes me cry every time. And then when Gabby decides to help that little girl that's lost because she's never been loved, that really makes me cry too. And then Hiccup and Toothless. Well, any scene with them, when he puts his hand out in the first movie, and then Toothless puts up in How to Train Your Dragon movies, obviously. And then the second movie, when he gets Toothless out of the control of the Alpha Dragon. And then when Toothless becomes the Alpha. And then when he says goodbye to Toothless. That really gets to me too. It's a really cool scene, but it's also very tragic, and I still cry. See, some of these scenes that are my favorites are really tragic, but they're still my favorites. I can't help it. And so Ahsoka versus Vader is not really a movie moment, it's a TV moment, but anyway, I included it on here because I love it. Ahsoka is meeting her former master, Anakin, and fights him in a duel. And then you have the final scene in Phantom of the Opera, which isn't really a movie, it's more of a stage production, but counting it as a movie. When Christine kisses the Phantom. And then when she sings Wishing Yourself Here Again, both those scenes are some of my favorites. So yeah, that about ends it all for this video today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe. If you want to send me an email, that'd be great, to my email, natautismcontext@gmail.com. If you want to send me your thoughts, or if you just wanted me to tell you more about yourself as you watch my channel, that'd be cool. I'll email you back, I promise, if you email me. So anyway, see ya. Bye.